Hey, can you hear me?
Hi.
Cool. Put myself in the corner, make you big.
What's up, cat lady? Can you
Hey.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, wow, that's so loud on my end. You talking? Okay. Sweet. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I was just I misplaced my detergent and I needed it for this experiment that we're going to be doing. So, um, yay, first time to StreamYard so far. I am stoked. We're connected to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. This is like huge for me. I am not a tech person, so thank you guys. First, let's just give a shout out. Thank you, Seedsman, for supporting my content. If you guys need seeds, I'm always dropping the link. You can find it in the description, 10% off with code SUNGROWN. Um, and recently, I've been writing a lot of articles for them that are based on planting in the ground, native soil, living soil. And as I am moving now to my new farm, I thought this would be the perfect time and opportunity for us to discuss and analyze native soil. So, um, first of all, I think that there's obviously I talk about this a lot, the difference between native soil and living soil, right? Living soil is a marketing term. It's a way, it's a system that we're utilizing the microorganisms to break down nutrients. Whereas native soil, right, is naturally it's relying on that system. That's how nature works. That's how native soil, it's doing its thing. But there are some huge differences, obviously, when we're planting in the ground versus a manufactured medium. And I, for one, coming from just like a gardening background, like of all things, right? Like when you plant in the ground, you are reducing so much work for yourself, like immense amount of work. Um, so today we're going to just talk about, how to analyze our soil, what we would want to do to it once we see it, different tools and tricks and tips and such. So, let's see here. I've got what up? Yay, welcome. I'm just checking the chat. Um, Trying to be done weed eating by then. I just got my freaking uh, rototiller dropped off. I've been trying to get it for the last few days. And so we'll talk about that too, like tilling versus no tilling, because it's like, there's so many different aspects to gardening um, and different opinions. And I don't think any one way is right. I think that the way that you do things is the right way for you. Maybe there might be better things that you could do, but essentially, like, we just want to be out there with our hands in the dirt doing, um, doing the gardening stuff. So I wanted to do this in my garden, my actual garden zone, but my Starlink doesn't actually reach the garden zone. So we're in my backyard. The garden zone is behind me, and I went ahead and I just grabbed some native soil, some of my native soil. So here's a jar of it. I put some in a Tupperware container. So we can take a look at that. And it's so funny. I had this jar that I had to do this experiment in had Geomoji's #5 in it, so it smells really good. And I didn't wash it out. I was just like, what's a little bit of resin in there? Make my dirt smell good, which is probably bad because one of the tools for analyzing your soil is to just um, smell it. But I did have it in a nice clean um, Tupperware container as well. Okay, so um, looking at my soil, I am going to notice a few things. Um, yes, native soil is all the term native soil, topsoil. Sorry, topsoil. Native soil, just the ground, the soil, real soil. There's a difference between, so when I say native soil, I'm just making sure to differentiate that I'm not talking about a modified potting mix that people call living soil or soil grown, because that's not really soil grown. That is organic matter that's manufactured by humans, right? So when I'm saying native soil, I'm just referring to topsoil, what Mother Nature produces, right? So let's just kick off right there. Um, your soil and the earth has all these different horizons, and um, that very top horizon is full of organic matter. And that organic matter is where we're seeing our nutrient cycling, right? Because that's where the microorganisms are living. This is where detritus is breaking down. This is where humus is stabilizing. Um, and so when we create a manufactured potting mix, we are taking the best parts of that, like of what our plants, like easy to grow through, lots of aeration, water holding capacity, but at the cost of, yes, so topsoil, native soil is interchangeable. I just have a tendency to say native soil because you can buy topsoil also from a soil yard, right? But your native topsoil is your terroir. This is like your ecosystem. And so for me, this is about gardening and stewarding the lands that you are responsible for, whether you're a renter, homeowner, or a guerrilla grower. Like the native soil is the soil that you are taking care of, that you have been blessed to steward. You have this opportunity. Um, and that's really where I love like gardening. I love seeing how we can interact with our ecosystem and just like do better, right? And learn from it, learn about ourselves, learn about the creatures that we're sharing it with. Um, so that's just where I say the native soil, because you can buy topsoil. The native soil is just like what you got going on under your feet, right? So for me, we can kind of see it's so things that we're going to be considering for analyzing our topsoil is like the color, the texture, the structure. Um, And sorry, my son and my dog are running around, and I was, you know, trying to getting a little distracted right now. Okay, so we've got our senses. We have us, and that's what I always say is like, "Hi, Norma G, what's up?" I say like you, the gardener, are the best tool in the garden, right? You're gonna make the greatest impact. It isn't anything that you buy. It isn't anything that you add. It's you. Like, what do they say? The best fertilizer is a gardener's shadow or something. Like, just being there in your garden. So, I had this great discussion with, the soil doctor about soil testing a few weeks back, and that soil testing is a valuable tool that you can use to get like a super accurate, representation of what's in your medium, what's in your soil, of mineral content, pH, all kinds of information that's going to help you become a better gardener and do things more efficiently, right? But there are also like things that you can just do at home. So just making these observations. What I see with my soil is like it's kind of granular. It doesn't have a ton of like the aggregates are pretty small, but it does have aggregates. It's not like you can go and you can look at a chart and you can see it's all in my living soil ebook if you guys are interested. But like literally you just soil science online, Google different things to look at for your soil. So feeling, what does it feel like when it's in your hands? Can you clump it together? So I'm going to add a little bit of, we're going to have a little mud bath here. And I'm going to add a little bit of distilled water to this and make some mud. Who doesn't like playing with mud? So mixing this up, I'm going to need to add a little bit more soil. I think I put too much water in there. That's okay. I got a whole jar full. Okay, so when you get your soil wet, you really just want to like It is finally warm. It's finally warm. It's like 75 degrees. It's been 45 degrees, so I'm embracing shorts, crop top, all of it. So now that I've gotten mud all over myself, when you get your soil wet, you really want to just play with it, squish it around, and see what it feels like. Then like smell it. You could probably taste it. It smells pretty good. It smells very minerally. It, so what I'm noticing from the soil, in the color, the smell, the texture, um, it's lacking organic matter. You can tell by the color. The darker, the more black, more closer to black, the more humus, more stabilized organic matter there is. And um, that's okay though. It's like then I take my inference skills, like of what I know about this plot or this garden area, and like I start making mental notes, things that I know about it, right? So it's been scraped. That means it's compacted. It's been worked like it heavy machinery scraped and cleared that area and flattened it out. Um, it's in a valley that is prone to flooding, knowing this geology about the Palouse, that it had repeated years of flooding. So I'm going to assume that it's probably lacking in calcium. I'm going to assume that it does have a accumulation of a lot of other trace minerals. Things that are water, super highly water mobile are going to be lacking because of all of the flooding. But because it is in a valley and it's like a shelf between a mountain, that there was and is still probably a lot of settling of minerals here. So you can like consider things like if you live in a glacier region or volcanic region, or is there a mudslide, or alluvial fan, like all of these things, you just think about the process of how the minerals got to your specific area, your soil, and consider the impact that it's going to have on those minerals. If you have like I just love saying alluvial fan, so let's just say it again. But like alluvial fan is like you can see it especially underwater, like this big um like from a mudslide underwater. Some kind of event moved a shitload of soil from the top down, and it creates this fan of soil, this conglomeration, and you have all of the minerals that were from all of these different layers, like you can see like on a mountainside, right, that each layer is a representation of a different time in geology. So we had different climate, we had different freaking plants and animals and things contributing to the soil layers. So just taking this into consideration about your new garden space, right? Um, so these are just things that you're taking note of, you're making observations and pondering. You can do, I tried digging a 12 by 12 hole, and my soil is so rocky and hard. So that's another observation. I couldn't even dig 12 inches deep. It is rock hard. And yes, I will be getting a lab soil test done for sure, but um, I'll probably just do it the one time. That's it. And then I will, because I'm working with native soil, sorry for the the photo bomb, oh God. But yes, yay. Hi, Christopher Gomez, LT Gold. Yes, I'll be getting a soil test done here. And I was actually thinking about um, having the soil doctor analyze it for me just to do some cross promotion and see what he would say, think about like my soil. His conversation actually got me really excited and sparked for growing in this specific region because he had mentioned how he believes the Palouse area is some of the richest soil in the West Coast, or maybe even the country. I can't remember, but it got me excited. That's for sure. So another thing that we're gonna do is we're going to just do, and I don't have a lot of battery, so we're gonna just go until my battery dies. I was busy today playing outside and didn't charge my phone up. Um, we're going to do the jar shake test. So this jar shake test is going to give us more information. Like this is like the soil test in a lab is just one piece, it's one tool. There are so many other pieces to analyzing your soil and what you can do to best improve its tilth, right? And that's the ability to grow plants. So distilled water, about a third of the jar filled with your topsoil, your native soil, and a heaping tablespoon of crack cocaine. No, just kidding. This is a detergent. This is a powdered detergent for the dishwasher. And we're going to just do a tablespoon in there. And this is a water softener, and so it's going to help stabilize the sediment as it separates. And so we're testing for the soil's texture so that we can find out the ratio of sand, silt, and clay. Um, yeah, no, actually, my mom, I don't buy this kind of detergent. Um, and I asked my mom to bring it over because I know she uses this. And she just dropped off the rototiller. Thank you, Mom. This is in honor of Mother's Day. Everyone um, give your mom a hug and thank the moms in your life. We wouldn't be here without them. So then I'm just gonna fill this bitch up with distilled water and leaving a little bit of room. There we go, because we want to be able to shake it real good. And this, like I said, this is, you're supposed to like pick out the rocks and um, sticks and shit, but I did to the best of my ability. And so I dug down about 6 to 8 inches deep. That's about as far as I got. And then I was, you know, like I dug with a shovel and then I dug with a little hand spade to put this in here. And you want to use clean tools, not touch it with your hand. Um, and just shaking this up, and then you're gonna let it sit. Yes, this is live, Peter. Um, okay, so we need to shake it a little bit more. I've got some soil sitting on the bottom. God damn it. Okay, got a little crazy there. There we go. So I probably should just shake it a little bit more because, right, we want to just keep on shaking, shaking, shaking. So what this is going to do is this is going to separate out the different layers of your soil texture. There's 3 different types of soil texture: sand, silt, and clay, with sand being the largest of the particle size, then silt, and then clay. Now, a lot of people have hate on clay, and I'm just going to say I love clay. Like, it has the highest CEC of the soil textures, and it just needs a little extra help. And I just have a soft spot for the people who the underdogs, the ones who maybe people judge for whatever reason. Like, I'm just gonna have my back with my, Clay's got my back, man, and I've got it. So we're gonna let this sit for 24 hours and it's gonna separate out. The jar test on my soil has no profile, solid clay. Oh man, I'm so sorry. That is crazy because most all soils have a lot of different, like a mixture. It's typically a mixture of all 3. And so when you can look in the soil science textbook at that little triangle, and you'll have your sand, silt, and clay on each side. And basically, right, clay is the smallest particle size, so it has broken down. That's why it's going to be at the top. Silt is a little bit larger. It'll be at the middle, and then sand at the very bottom. And there's a few things that you would do differently for the different soil textures. You cannot change your soil texture, okay? It doesn't happen. This is like geology, like Earth makes your soil texture. But you can improve different things, different aspects, like its structure, like its organic matter content. Its water holding capacity is going to be like super crazy with clay, but you can add things to it to help maybe it, um, you know, percolate a little bit easier. So for any soil texture, really adding organic matter is going to be the key. I talk about this a lot. We're a society that takes, this consumerism that we need to buy things and we need to, just have stuff and kind of like resource intensive, and just like take things away, cut things down, use it, and not having like that forethought or foresight to consider what you're doing. So every time we garden and we remove all of the organic matter and we don't let it just lay fallow, we're taking organic matter out of our gardens. And so like climate reports are saying that we have like in the world 60 harvests left with our current agricultural soils because of how we intensely manage. And so like thinking about things in a holistic light of how can I not only grow enough food to feed the world, grow enough medicine for myself, but also feed my soil and my ecosystem and all of the organisms that share it with me, because I'm not the most important. I'm just the most conscious. And so isn't that my responsibility to be like taking care of it? And so with our soils, that is something that we've been hearing this since the freaking Dust Bowl, though, you guys. Like, this isn't new. Soil scientists traveled the country telling farmers, yo, like, you need to add things back to your soil. You just keep harvesting, leaving it bare, over tilling. And this is what happens. We see this big lack. Um, and so it's just like I see and I have hope for this narrative change of like people being more conscious and like trying to do better, and that's all we can ask. And then like trying to like gently encourage other people to like try things differently maybe, or give back a little bit. So like composting is huge for me, right? um Composting is what a huge way that we can give back to our soil, right? So instead of throwing all of our kitchen scraps in the trash can where they're going to get buried and create toxic leachate and methane gas, we can turn that into black gold for our soil and increase our soil organic matter. So next week, I am going to be building a Johnson Sioux bioreactor for the live stream. So hopefully I can get all of my fingers crossed. I am going to do that. I really like the activities. I am such a like an activities kind of person. So doing these live streams with me, with having like something to do, is really, really awesome. Let me check the chat really quick and see what we've got. Um, Omega Man says he was growing outdoors in 3 30-gallon geopots and living soil. Cloth pots are falling apart and need to be retired. I'm upgrading to 45-gallon grassroots living soil pots. Awesome. I would challenge you, Omega Man, to try planting in the ground. There is nothing like planting in the ground. First of all, overwatering and underwatering are practically a thing of the past. Your plant size is going to explode when you take away that container, because the bigger the roots, the bigger the shoots, the bigger the fruits, motherfuckers. I mean, seriously, like planting in the ground, you're just gonna have a bigger plant. I do understand the benefits. I've grown in pots plenty, and there's so many benefits to growing in pots. Just controlling your media, being able to move it because it's like sketchy. Um, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you're not supposed to be growing. You could put them in the U-Haul and take them out to wherever for a few days. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But like, it's just so satisfying planting in the ground. It's just like I love it. And I know that there's a lot of pushback because it's a long-term game by planting in the ground. This is like your first crop may not be like, your soil might not be as great as you would like it to be. Like, it's super easy to just buy a bag of potting mix, put your amendments in, follow a schedule, and do this thing. But when you're planting in the ground, like, yes, get your soil tested. The one time is good enough, honestly. So this is a question that I had for the soil doctor, and it just reaffirmed my soil testing opinion, but maybe that's a confirmation bias that I have in my head, and I'm trying to be aware of that. Um, but the thing is that he said when he has folks who get their soil tested and then have it tested again, that the recommendations stay the same for native soil topsoil because it's millions of years old. It took so long for it to be created in this way, and one season isn't going to change that, or even like your season, you know what I mean? Like your lifetime probably won't even change that unless there's some kind of crazy cataclysmic event. So, um, like get your soil tested if you're doing native soil. There's a cost savings. You only have to do it once. When you're growing in containers, a lot of the times, unless you have it completely dialed in, you know, like if you change your nutrient regimen, like I see so many people overfeeding in pots and having nutrient lockout and issues. Your pots always are going to need more minerals. They're always going to need more nutrients. They're always going to want. Take. Whereas your soil, you're going to give to it and it's going to keep giving back to you and giving back to you over like expanding logarithmically, right? Not exponentially, whatever. Um, and so like just I got the rototiller and I did that because my soil, like I said, I tried to dig a 12-inch hole and I couldn't get there. I got like 8 inches deep and there's fucking rocks and it's highly compacted. So knowing that about my soil, I'm going to use the rototiller the one time. Now I am bringing in a ton of old potting mix. Um, and um, let's see here. I'm reading. I get so distracted. Should you dig a hole like a pot in the ground? I should plant in the ground. I would love to. Okay. Yes. Okay. When I didn't have access to a rototiller, if I was going to just plant one plant in the ground, like if I had a little patch of dirt somewhere in my yard, doesn't need to be that big, but preferably like 5 feet by 5 feet is my go-to, and then you're like guaranteed to have a 10-foot plant. Um, and yes, barley is amazing. Any kind of those grasses. So that I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna get into that for sure. But if I was to plant one plant in the ground, I would take a pickaxe and pickaxe that motherfucker and pick out the rocks. And I would try to break up the soil for at least 8 inches deep. And this is what I've done plenty of times. Um, when I just have like, oh, I'm in a yard and I just can only do three plants in the ground. So I did this and I've done this multiple times and it works great every time, no matter what, you know, if you don't have access to tools, literally it's just like your muscles. Break that up. And then the thing is that when you have different soil structures from manufactured potting mix to a native soil, like this soil, if I took the same volume of this topsoil compared to of the same volume of potting mix, like this would be so much heavier because what is this? This is made up of ground rocks. This is what our minerals are. They're directly from the earth. We're tapping the source to get our minerals. Um, and so really just like um, understanding that the difference in the weight is going to have a huge difference in the way that water moves through your soil. Um, so like when you're adding, because you're going to want to add organic matter. Like most of our soils don't have enough organic matter, and so even virgin soil, unless it's like, I mean, I don't even know where virgin soil is nowadays. You know what I mean? Like really, there's not really fucking virgin soil anywhere. There's no more virgins. Um, if you, what am I saying here? I'm losing my train of thought, man. I didn't even smoke for like at least a few hours, but whatever. Okay, so the weight. Oh yes. So the potting mix and the manufactured media that we're often growing in, like we want to add some of it, right, to our native soil or like compost or something to lighten it up. Add more aeration, especially if you have like a lot of heavy compaction, or if you're in sand and it's sand isn't going to hold on to water, so it's going to infiltrate, it's going to percolate out faster. So you want to add things that hold on to, like act like a sponge, so like wood chips. But compost, compost, compost. I can't say it enough. Compost as much as you can get as possible. Like I'm scouring Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. I'm looking for free manure, compost, any organic matter that you can get your hands on, old bales of hay. Like all of that is the good stuff that's going to decompose. It's going to give food to your microorganisms that are then going to solubilize those minerals that are present in your native soil. It's also going to allow, your root zone to just explode because it's not having to fight through the hard ground. And so that's where I'm getting at. When you are breaking up your native soil, make sure that you're breaking it up, but then you want to homogenize it with some of your compost or top or potting mix or whatever it is that you're adding. And you want to, so like if you're using the pickaxe, you just pickaxe it, and then you add your compost, add your potting mix, whatever, and then I use like a hard rake and just get it in there and try and homogenize it as much as possible. And then like for this instance, because I'm using a rototiller, I think it's like a 6-inch rear tine rototiller. I don't know, I borrowed it from my mom's friend. Thank you, mom's friend, coming in. Just living by family has been so great for this project. Um, but then I'm going to add compost into the areas that I am building my raised beds, and I'm going to be rototilling in so that it homogenizes, so that there isn't two distinct layers of native soil to potting mix or compost, right? You want to make sure that you're not getting all the water just rushing out really quickly, like going through that really light, airy stuff and then sitting on top of your native soil, because there's definitely, probably, most likely a little bit of clay, and if there is any clay and you add it, then it's just going to sit on there and kind of create a hard pan, and just like watering issues you're going to run into. So think about that when you're putting in the ground. um and then like I am putting in small raised beds because um the there's gophers, there's pests, there's things that burrow in the ground. And so this is a great way to just attach chicken wire to the bottom of your raised beds. If you're doing just hole in the ground, you can literally just buy the chicken wire and then just dig your hole and put the chicken wire down in the bottom of the hole, then add your soil and your plant in there, and then it helps protect it. Oh my God, this is so crazy. My dog just ran under the tripod. I can't believe that it didn't. Here, do you want to make some mud pancakes? Yeah, go make some mud pancakes with Dad over there. Um, let's see the chat really quick. Add rice hulls. Yes, I add a shitload of rice hulls. Rice hulls, hay, straw, not hay. Hay has the seeds. Hay is for horses, not your soil, because you don't want a bunch of weeds. Straw, rice hulls, wood chips, compost, aged manure, 180 days aged, preferably hot composted afterward as well. Um, if you have sphagnum peat moss, old potting mix, if you like, you can add all of that to help improve the tilth of your native soil. And what I'm saying, it's not like like there's a reason we manufacture our potting mix with these items, because plants love them. They're great to grow in, but we can use both to improve our native soil and not have to spend so much money, because we're accessing the minerals that are present in our native soil. Um, let's see here. What are the best inputs to avoid heavy metals? Compost and biochar. Biochar, you should definitely add biochar. Biochar is fucking cool. I love biochar. I was like on a kick of biochar all last year, and I have a shitload of it. Um, and I'm definitely trying to make a biochar kiln here. I just got to get the garden in, got to get the Johnson Soup bioreactors, got to get the chicken coop built, because I already bought 16 chickens. And animals are a huge contribution to your outdoor gardens if you can have them. Obviously, not everyone can have them, but yes. So, biochar does a really amazing job of remediating heavy metals. It kind of like acts like a magnet. So we use biochar in our water filtration systems, like cities, sewer systems. Um, it does a really amazing job of purifying and holding on to impurities that like heavy metals. Um, and it increases the passivation rate when in the presence of humus. So humus, obviously, humic acid, fulvic acid, humates are really high in compost. So combining those two things together, it kind of acts like a magnet for heavy metals and does a really good job of passivating them. But then like using, trusting the source like of what you're using, knowing like for specifically for kelp, like it's been reported, different types of kelp are maybe high in heavy metals. So I use maxi crop from the North Atlantic specific because it is really low in heavy metals. It's not like California kelp that's getting pumped with Fukushima radiation and pollution and whatever. Um, so like being conscious of your inputs and what kind of heavy metal levels they have. But I have used kelp, but I use a ton of compost and currently a lot of biochar as of the last couple of years. And I have had my weed tested and never had any um, heavy metals, anything hot for heavy metals. So uh, also being very aware of what you're spraying your plants with. Um, Let's see here. Bring in the earthworms and let them go to work. Microbes will come. Yes, I love that comment. um, so definitely worms. Uh, you know, there are just like everything in life. There's disagreements in like what's okay and what's not okay. And like I've heard, don't let the worms out if you're buying them and they're not native or endemic to your region because then they outcompete for like the native worms. So try to attract your native worms rather than purchasing things and putting them in there because we as humans oftentimes think that we're doing something great and then like has all these ramifications and repercussions because that's the way the world works, that butterfly effect, the rippling. um so whew, Sphagnum moss hulls is a waste product of the sphagnum moss industry. They give it away by the pickup load. That's a very amazing tip. So I'm gonna have to look into that because a lot of that sphagnum peat moss, I think, is like from Canada. I saw some living sphagnum moss in Florida growing in the swamps, and that was really cool to see it. Hey everybody, hey T Mac, and Omega Man. Yes, the more biochar. So, biochar, you can charge it with the compost. That's an awesome option, and it is super porous. It's like a hotel for microbes, um, and it increases your CEC, your cation exchange capacity. So let's get back to clay and why I love clay and the CEC a little bit. So cation exchange capacity is the basically the ability for your soil to hold on to cations, which are, like positively charged minerals, right? So like calcium and shit. And the more sites that you have, the more that they are going to be available to your plants. And so increasing your CEC is a way for your soil to hold on to more of those minerals that our plants need. Um, so like sand has a much lower, like clay actually has a negative charge. So think about a cation is positively charged. If clay has a negative charge, it's going to create an ionic bond and therefore it's actually physically attracting. They're attracted to each other. They've got that chemistry. That's where that word comes from, right? The bond. And so clay is good for that reason, but biochar also increases your CEC. Compost increases your CEC because humic acid and fulvic acid, which are huge components, the humates are in compost, and they are um, just all of these crazy molecules that are completely unique and different, chains together of different carbohydrates. Um, that allow different minerals to connect to it and attach to it. God, my dog keeps going under the fucking tripod. This is so crazy having Okay, sorry guys. Um, yes, Omega Man, don't want to disrupt your native ecosystem. Justin, I know. Also grow in the ground. Yay! Yeah, so growing in the ground, I mean, besides like growing bigger plants, you don't have to worry about overwatering or underwatering as much because like you're not dealing with that. The water is the roots can reach out further. It's not, you can't really overwater in the ground because it'll just percolate away. It's just going back into your water table. Um, and it's a lot harder to underwater or not water them enough. If your plant's wilting in the ground, man, you really, really didn't water it. I just had an interview with Ben from the Humboldt Seed Company on Tuesday, and if you're on my Patreon, it will be uploaded as soon as it finishes processing. We both have terrible service, I guess. I thought Starlink was the shit, but apparently it's not. Or Ben's taking forever. It's like at 91% since Tuesday, and it's Thursday now. So I hope that it gets on there because we talked about the triploids, we talked about all kinds of fun things. But one of the things I said was just like how much I don't really like indoor because I'm not an indoor person. I love being wild and free and outside. And like also I have so many hobbies and um like growing outside in the ground, you can just set up a timer and you can like go on vacation for a week. You know, like you can go camping and whatever and not worry about your indoor room, which is, yeah, you can have all of this, everything set up on technology and everything, but blah, 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 blah. We're talking about outdoor here. Direct seed in the ground and your mind will be blown. That taproot goes nuts. So I'm really excited to try that with some of the auto flowers because I started all my photo period seeds and it's just now like not getting below freezing outside overnight. So I couldn't, and I just moved and all of the things. But I'm gonna definitely direct seed some auto flowers. I am working on an article right now. Shout out again, Seedsman. This month is auto flower promo. You can grab your seeds right now. They've got discounts going on, and I'm working on some articles about auto flowers. But planting them direct sown is like the way to go. Don't transplant them, don't start them inside, like just plant them directly. Um, yes, growing outdoors is so much better than indoors. I love it too. I think all of us do who are viewing this channel because being outside is just, it's wonderful. Look at, you can already see this starting to separate. I'm not supposed to touch it, actually. I'm supposed to just let it sit, but um, yeah, so you're gonna get the organic matter floating to the top. We're gonna have our sand at the very bottom, our silt and our clay, and I'll measure it and take a little video. Maybe I'll put it on like Instagram or something. Queen of the Sun Grown, follow it. And then you'll just calculate using that little chart, a little bit of math. Math's good for your brain, y'all. Do it. Um, and then we'll see, just to have some more information of like from my observation of it, it definitely looks like there is a lot of clay, but there's definitely a little bit of sand and silt. So I don't know what that ratio is, and there's just things that you can do knowing that ratio. Obviously, organic matter, adding more and more of it is really like my goal is here because that's my biggest concern is that it is super lacking in organic matter. Um, and again, I think that's just from being cleared. That's just like a compaction issue of actually removing all of the topsoil to grade that area into a flat zone. So it's nice because I live on a hillside that I have a flat garden, but it also means I'm gonna have to bring in a shitload of organic matter. It's not like I have like this lush, like I actually the property that I'm renting is 12 acres and the 3 acres below me is all pasture from cows, and it's like, oh, that would be sick to section off a garden there that's just been like grazed every summer by cattle. Um, it's just, and it's along the creek side, it's booming, and I'm sure there's like, there's a bald eagle that lives across the street, and there's otters and Canadian geese and wild turkeys and deer all the time. Like I see like 20 different animals a day down there, and I'm like, man, that would have been That would be cool. Although then I'm also fighting them. They're gonna want my juicy tender plants. Um, let's see here. Julian, have you looked into using copper coil rods in the ground to ground the plants? I have not because you know what? Copper comes from the ground. And then there's like copper as an element, and I think that it's that's just kind of my thought process behind it. It's like I'm not really adding anything, um, but I haven't looked behind, like really dove into it or looked into it that much. So I will. I'll definitely read it. If you got an article or something, um, post it up in the chat. I would be happy to analyze it and read it. But my thoughts are, um, for grounding purposes, when you're planting in the ground, they're grounded, right? They're literally in the ground. Um, so, what else can we analyze about our soil? Yes, smell. Like I said, I did smell my soil before, and it smelled very minerally. So I have a pretty strong nose, and when I'm in California versus Idaho, because like I grew up in California and Idaho half and half, and I would always be able to smell the difference of the soil. Idaho has such a distinct smelling soil, and it's like very like mineral rich, like very, I don't know how, dusty smelling almost, and just like completely different. So even though that's not giving you like guys a lot of information, it's just like a useful tool for you to be able to recognize different scents. Like I can smell manganese in my water. Like knowing what, like, and it's similar to sulfur, but it's not as strong. And that's another thing, getting your your water tested. So understanding, like having a well report, maybe knowing, especially if you're on a well, what minerals are there. Like me being able to smell the manganese in my water, and then also like making observations about what does your water do to your sinks and your toilet bowl. Is it leaving, what color of a residue is it leaving? Is it creating deposits? Is it got a lot of calcium carbonate in it? So like I said, a soil test is great, but also just having like knowledge, equipping yourself with the facts or like data collection, and like analyzing the data is also a great tool. And it's just, they're all tools of our toolbox. So this is one of them. We're doing our jar shake test. Um, we're going to be building that Johnson Soup bioreactor next week, getting the soil sample off and tested, getting a well report. And let's see here. One reason I love growing outdoors is I love growing huge plants, and you can get cannabinoid and terpene profiles that you can't get growing indoors the way you do growing under the sun. I agree, and that's scientifically proven, and I'm so excited. I just submitted an article to Skunk Magazine specifically referencing this, and I've talked about it in the podcast, Sungrown Stories. Um, I have been studying terpenes or secondary metabolites for years and trying to understand. I mean, University of Israel has been doing amazing studies on cannabis for, like, they were at the forefront of cannabis science and studying the effects of the sun, radiation, on all of this on our plants. And what happens is that there's just a diversity outside that we don't get inside, right? And that's the same reason why we have like pest explosions indoors, because there isn't a balance of diversity of other things to eat them. And so when we have this interaction of a wide myriad of events happening outdoors, the secondary metabolites like cannabinoids and terpenes and phytohormones are um, they're the communication, they are the language, they are the love language of plants and animals, and we can influence them a little bit, right? Indoors, we can add chitin, insect frass, and different things to stimulate stress response, like jasmonic acid, to increase the terpenes. But the diversity outdoors mirrors the diversity in secondary metabolites found in a cannabis plant, because it is that diversity that is communicating with each other, creating and stimulating this response to make these compounds. And so we grew inside because it was illegal. It's not illegal anymore. Like, I mean, it is in a lot of places, but you know what I mean? Like, RIP, I would be living in Idaho if it was illegal everywhere. So I totally understand. But um, we're seeing this huge change, this shift in attitude toward cannabis, and that it is becoming way more widely accepted. And hopefully, everyone who wants to can grow outdoors at some point, and that, um, yeah, yeah, that's just my goal and hopes. Outdoors so much more forgiving too, um, and uh, yes, terps are response to insect and pests and microorganisms and environmental stresses, like literally just like all of the things. It's just amazing. Um, it's still illegal in New Zealand. Oh, I'm bummed for you. Exactly. They did it because they're hiding from the police. And we are at this time, this shift in our collective consciousness that we are accepting our ancestral knowledge of this plant that has been like taken only the last 100 years, right? We knew it was the number one ingredient in all of our medicines. It was grown by our founding fathers. It was used to make Henry T. Ford had a car made out of bioplastics from hemp, running on hemp oil. Some of the first seeds to ever be cultivated in civilization 15,000, 10,000 years ago were hemp for the seeds, the high omega 3s. They're a food source. They are um, medicine. They're part of our bodies. We got the endocannabinoid system, y'all. So um, we'll get there again. We just got to keep on preaching, fighting the good fight, having these conversations, and like getting high with people, like passing around the joint and sharing our flower and our love for the plant. So um, and yes, glad it's legal now, Robert Rittenhouse. I'm so happy you're here, Robert. I haven't seen you or heard from you in a little bit. I'm glad that you're doing well. And um, yes, they were auto bodies were 10 times stronger than steel. Rainwater rules. Yes, I got it. That's on my list is to build a rainwater catchment system. Um, and yeah, guys, I am about to die. My phone is like literally at like 1%. So thank you guys for tuning in. I am just so blessed to be of Washington, being able to grow my plants outdoors and talk about it with you guys on the internet. What a beautiful world we live in that I'm not going to jail. And this it doesn't apply to just cannabis though. This uh happy birthday! Woo! Happy 36th birthday! Um this applies to all plants. Remember, this isn't just for cannabis, so this is all plants, and I want y'all to be growing more plants because other plants also produce more terpenes in your cannabis plant. Like terpenes communicate with each other, so there's other plants like lavender that increase linalool and other things, and strawberries and yarrow, and there's a whole plethora we haven't even studied fully yet. And um, but it's all part of it. It's all part, just because it hasn't been validated in a lab doesn't mean that it's not happening, and we're not seeing it. And anecdotally, it isn't true. So get out there, plant more plants, get your hands dirty, and I'll see y'all next week. And if you want to tune in, I'd also go live Tuesdays for Patreon, and everyone who signs up for Patreon is supporting Blaze, the citizen science project that me and Cat Lady are doing out of the goodness of our hearts, just trying to encourage more sun-grown outdoor growers and create these gardening hardiness zones. So Blaze, come on over to Patreon, support it. Of course, I'll give updates here and there, this podcast, the Instagram, whatever. And thanks, guys. But I will see you next week or on Tuesday if you're a part of Patreon. Peace out.